We went on a short family vacation to a beach resort. It was just me, my husband, and his parents. I was excited because I thought it would be a nice time for all of us to relax and bond. But things didn't start well. On the first night, we went to the hotel restaurant for dinner. The waiter came and set 3 chairs at one table and placed another single chair at a small table just a few steps away. I thought maybe it was a mistake, but it wasn't. My father-in-law smiled and said, "You don't mind sitting over there, right? You like quiet." He laughed like it was a small joke, but it wasn't funny to me. I looked at my husband, hoping he would say something or fix it, but he didn't. He just looked down, avoiding my eyes. I felt my heart sink. I didn't want to cause a scene, so I quietly walked over and sat at the small table alone. While they sat together, talking and laughing, I sat there in silence, picking at my food. No one looked my way. No one asked how I was doing. It felt like I wasn't even there. It was painful, and I felt embarrassed. I tried to keep a calm face, but inside I felt hurt. I wondered if I had done something wrong, or if they just didn't like me. I had come on this trip hoping to feel closer to my husband's family, but instead, I felt pushed aside. That one dinner changed how I saw everything. It wasn't about the chair. It was about respect. It was about being treated like I didn't belong. And the worst part was that my husband didn't defend me. He let them treat me that way. I felt alone, not just at the table, but in my marriage too. That night, I realized this vacation was not going to be what I expected. It was the beginning of something I didn't see coming, and I knew deep down that I couldn't just sit quietly forever. Something had to change. After that first dinner, everything started to feel worse. It wasn't just about that small table anymore. Every little thing that followed felt like a quiet message that I didn't belong with them. The next morning, we went for a walk along the beach. My husband and his parents walked ahead, talking among themselves, not once looking back to see if I was with them. I wasn't walking slowly. I was just left out, as if they didn't care whether I was there or not. I felt like a stranger, following a group that didn't want me. When we stopped to eat lunch later that day, they sat down and ordered without even asking what I wanted. I stood there for a few seconds, waiting for someone to notice me. No one did. I ended up ordering my food by myself, and when it came, it wasn't even at the same time as theirs. They had already started eating. It felt like I was watching a family from the outside, not part of it. Later in the afternoon, I asked my mother-in-law if she had any sunscreen. The sun was strong, and I could feel my skin burning. She looked at me, rolled her eyes, and handed it over without a word. It wasn't just the eye roll. It was the way she made me feel like asking for something so small was a problem. I thanked her, but she didn't reply. My husband saw the whole thing, and instead of helping me, he frowned and said, "Can you stop being so difficult?" I was shocked. Difficult? I hadn't even raised my voice. I just asked for sunscreen. It made me feel even smaller than before. I went quiet after that. That night, I lay on the bed pretending to sleep, while they sat out on the balcony with a bottle of wine. They were laughing and talking in low voices. And even though I tried not to listen, I heard my name. I didn't catch every word, but the way they said it made my chest tighten. They were laughing again, and I knew it wasn't good. It was the kind of laugh people have when they're talking about someone behind their back. I felt cold inside. I wanted to cry, but I didn't want to give them the satisfaction of hearing me break. In that moment, I realized this wasn't just a bad day. This was planned. They didn't want me there, and they didn't even care to hide it. What hurt more than anything was that my husband, the one person who should have been on my side, was joining in. He wasn't just ignoring it, he was part of it. And I began to wonder if I had been blind to it for a long time. As the days passed, I started thinking about all the moments I had pushed aside. Being around them every day during the vacation, with no work, no friends, no breaks, made everything clear. It felt like the silence gave their true feelings space to show, and for the first time, I saw everything without confusion. This was not something that started on this trip. It had always been there. I just didn't want to believe it. I began remembering all those times during past holidays when I felt uncomfortable but didn't speak up. How my mother-in-law would comment on the way I dressed, saying things like, "Oh, that's an interesting choice," while smiling tightly. How my father-in-law would ignore me during conversations and only speak directly to my husband. How they gave me cold hugs, short and stiff, like they were doing it only because they had to. I always told myself that maybe they were still getting used to me, that things would get better with time. There were moments when I tried to connect with them. I offered to help in the kitchen during family dinners. I brought thoughtful gifts for birthdays and holidays. I even remembered their favorite things just to show I cared, but it never seemed to matter. I would get small smiles or no reaction at all. And still, I convinced myself that if I kept being kind, they would eventually see me as one of them. But now, sitting in that resort, far from home and close to their daily behavior, I saw that nothing had changed. They had never tried to accept me. One evening, I couldn't hold it in anymore. I asked my husband, "Why do they treat me like this? What did I do wrong?" He didn't even look surprised. He just sighed and said, "They just think you're not like us. Don't take it personally." That answer made my heart ache. Not like us. It felt like he agreed with them. It felt like he had given up on standing up for me, or maybe he never planned to. I had always hoped he saw the way they acted, that maybe he just didn't know how to deal with it. But now, it seemed like he had accepted it, and worse, he expected me to do the same. I realized I had spent years trying to belong to a family that didn't want me. I tried to ignore the small hurts, the cold moments, the lack of warmth. I thought love and patience would be enough, but sometimes people make up their minds about you and no amount of kindness can change it. It hurt, but at least now I saw things clearly. After that day, I stopped trying to make them like me. I stopped forcing smiles or acting like I didn't notice the way they treated me. Instead, I just watched. I listened more than I spoke. I started to see things I had ignored before. The way my mother-in-law's smile dropped when I entered a room. The way my father-in-law's tone changed when talking to me versus when talking to my husband. They would lower their voices when I passed by, whispering, then pretending to talk about something else. At first, I thought I was just being sensitive, but the more I paid attention, the clearer it became. They didn't even hide it well. They acted like I didn't belong, and it was no longer something I could ignore. My husband, too, had a pattern I hadn't noticed before. If his mother said something rude, he would look down or change the subject. If I tried to speak up, he would ask me to let it go or don't make a big deal. It was like he wanted peace, even if it meant leaving me alone in my pain. One afternoon at a beachfront restaurant, something happened that made everything clearer. The waiter brought the bill and asked if we wanted it all together. My father-in-law quickly said, "Split it, please. We're not all family." It was so sharp and direct that even the waiter looked confused. I looked at my husband, but he didn't say a word. I let out a laugh, not because it was funny, but because it was so clear now. I had been trying to be part of something that clearly didn't want me. My laugh caught them off guard. My mother-in-law looked away, and I saw a flash of something in her face. Maybe surprise, maybe guilt. For the first time, I wasn't hurt. I was just done pretending. I stopped sitting quietly and nodding. I didn't argue. I didn't cry. I just stopped playing the part they expected. I stopped asking if they needed help. I stopped forcing conversations, and that shift made them uncomfortable. They noticed I was no longer waiting for their approval. I wasn't chasing their kindness anymore. I was just present, watching, listening, learning, and somehow that made them more careful, more tense. They didn't expect me to stop caring, but I had. I had finally learned that silence is not always peace. Sometimes, silence is the loudest way to speak. One evening, he left his phone on the bed and went to take a shower. I didn't plan to check it, but something inside me said to look. Maybe it was all the things I had been feeling, or maybe it was the way he had been acting. I picked up the phone and opened the messages. What I saw made my chest tighten. His mother had sent him a message. She said, "You're not seriously going to bring her to dinner again, are you?" My hands shook as I kept reading. His reply was short but clear. He wrote, "I'll keep her busy. Just don't start anything." I stared at those words for a long time. My face felt hot, but my body went cold. In that moment, everything made sense. He was not just ignoring how they treated me, he was helping them do it. He knew how they spoke about me. He laughed with them in private, then came to me pretending it was nothing. I had been alone all this time, but now I knew it was worse than that. I was the joke. I was the outsider they tolerated for his sake, not someone they cared for or respected. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. I placed the phone back where he left it and waited. When he came out of the shower, I was sitting on the bed, calm, quiet. He smiled at me like everything was fine. I looked up and asked, "How long have I been the joke?" His face changed. The smile dropped. He didn't speak right away. He looked at his phone, then back at me. He tried to say it wasn't what I thought. He said it was just a bad joke, that I was reading too much into it. But I had already read enough. I told him not to explain. I had seen the truth with my own eyes. There was nothing else to say. The person I trusted the most had been standing beside the people who hurt me. He didn't protect me. He made plans with them to keep me out. That night, I didn't sleep much. I just laid there thinking about all the times I had defended him, all the times I told myself he was just caught in the middle, but now I saw the truth. He was never in the middle. He had chosen his side a long time ago. I was just the last one to see it. The next morning, I packed a small bag and told them I needed some space to clear my head. I didn't ask anyone. I just did it. I booked another room in a different part of the resort, where I wouldn't have to see them unless I wanted to. The silence in that room felt different, clean, calm, peaceful. For the first time since we arrived, I could breathe. I began spending time outside alone. I walked along the shore without thinking about who was walking ahead of me or behind me. I smiled at strangers who smiled back. I sat at cafes, drank tea slowly, and watched people laugh with their families. No one knew who I was. No one treated me like I didn't belong. I liked that feeling. Each evening, I sat by the window and wrote down everything I could remember from the past few days. I didn't leave out a single detail: what they said, how they looked at me, the way my husband responded or didn't. I also started taking quiet photos of dinner tables, of where they sat, of messages, of small moments that spoke louder than words. I didn't want to forget anything. One night, I sat with my phone and listened back to the audio I had recorded. I had kept my phone on when they thought I had left the room. I heard the words they said, clear and sharp. I heard my name, the way they laughed, and how my husband didn't say a word to stop them. It hurt, but it was real. That made it useful. I called a friend I trusted. I told her everything. She didn't try to comfort me with empty words. She listened. Then she said, "You don't have to stay in this story. You can write a new one." That stuck with me. I also called a lawyer, someone she recommended. I asked a lot of questions and got answers that gave me courage. Each step made me feel stronger. I wasn't just reacting anymore. I was preparing. This time, I wasn't going to walk away crying or confused. I was going to stand my ground and decide what came next. I didn't want revenge. I wanted truth, and I wanted peace. Alone in that room, I didn't feel weak. I felt clear. I wasn't lost. I was finding my way. Slowly, quietly, I was taking my life back. And I knew the moment would come when I'd show them I was no longer the same woman they thought they could treat like nothing. I woke up early that morning and got dressed slowly. I felt calm, not angry. I had made up my mind. I walked to the restaurant where we always had breakfast and asked the waiter to prepare a table for 4. He smiled and nodded. I waited there, looking out at the ocean, breathing in the salty air. My heart was steady. They arrived a few minutes later. My husband looked surprised to see me sitting at the main table. His parents paused. My mother-in-law raised her eyebrows, but I didn't move. The waiter came and asked if everything was okay. I smiled and said, "Yes, this is our table." They sat down slowly. No one spoke at first. As soon as the waiter walked away, my father-in-law said, "We thought you were staying somewhere else." I just looked at him. My husband opened his mouth like he wanted to say something, but I didn't give him the chance. I took my phone from my bag and opened the messages. Then, without asking, I began to read. I read her message. "You're not seriously going to bring her to dinner again, are you?" I read his reply. "I'll keep her busy. Just don't start anything." I read another message, and another. I didn't raise my voice. I didn't cry. I just read, clear and calm. My husband's face turned white. He looked down at the table. My mother-in-law leaned forward and hissed, "You're embarrassing us." I looked her in the eye and said, "No, you embarrassed yourselves." I just gave people a chance to hear it. The people at the next table went quiet. A man at the corner turned to look. One of the waiters stopped walking. I didn't care who heard. I had been quiet for too long. My voice, steady and strong, was not for them anymore. It was for me. No one at that table had anything to say after that. They stared at their food or the floor. My husband looked like he wanted to disappear. I pushed back my chair and stood up. I had no need to argue. I didn't ask for an apology. I just said, "I hope you remember this breakfast," and walked away. The air outside felt lighter. My steps felt stronger. I didn't have a plan for what would happen next, but I knew I would be fine. I had spoken my truth, and that was enough. After I left the table that morning, I expected them to stay quiet, maybe even feel ashamed. But instead, just a few hours later, my husband came to find me. He knocked on my room door and asked to come in. I let him. He looked nervous, like he didn't know where to start. He said things got out of hand and that I had misunderstood everything. He said they didn't mean anything by their words and I was reading too much into it. I sat on the edge of the bed and looked at him. He said I had embarrassed everyone, that I should have handled it differently. I asked him what differently meant. Quietly? Alone? silently walking around like I didn't matter. He said I wasn't being fair. I smiled, not out of happiness, but because it sounded like a joke. Then came the same words I'd heard before. You're too sensitive. You always take things the wrong way. You're overreacting. He kept going in circles, trying to explain why I was wrong to feel what I felt. Not once did he ask what I had gone through. Not once did he say sorry. He said he would talk to them, fix it, make everything better. I looked at him, and I saw a man who would always stand beside them, not me. He didn't protect me when I needed him to. He didn't speak when I was treated badly. He stayed silent, always. But now, when it was about him being uncomfortable, he had so much to say. I reached into my bag and pulled out my wedding ring. I placed it gently on the table between us. He froze. I told him I didn't want words anymore. I didn't want promises. I didn't want to wait for him to choose me. He had already chosen. I said, "You've been talking to them the whole time. I'm finally talking to myself." He sat there for a few seconds, staring at the ring like he didn't understand what was happening. I stood up and walked to the door. I opened it. He didn't follow. He didn't fight. He just stayed sitting, like the truth had finally hit him. But it was too late to stop it. After he left, I locked the door and sat down quietly. I didn't cry. I didn't feel regret. I felt like I had done something right for the first time in a long while. I had chosen myself. No more waiting, no more hoping, just peace. After I walked away from my marriage, I knew I couldn't just let it all fade quietly. What happened to me wasn't just a personal story. It was something so many others had been through too. I remembered the nights I stayed quiet, the way I forced smiles, how I blamed myself, and I knew someone out there was probably doing the same thing right now. So I decided to speak. I sat in my hotel room one evening and opened my laptop. I gathered everything I had, screenshots of messages, recordings of their words, and photos I took during the trip. I didn't edit anything. I didn't soften the truth. I didn't try to hide behind blurry images or cut out voices. I recorded a video of myself sitting in that same chair, with my face clear and my voice steady. I didn't scream. I didn't cry. I simply told the truth. I explained how I had felt, what I had heard, and how I had been treated. I shared the moment I saw the message calling me dead weight. I played the audio of them whispering behind my back. I didn't use their names, but it didn't take long before people knew who they were. I uploaded the video and closed my laptop. I didn't expect much. Maybe a few views, maybe a handful of comments. But within hours, the messages started. At first from friends, then strangers. Women I had never met before wrote to say thank you. Some said they'd been through the same thing. Others said they were still stuck, still scared, still trying to make it work with people who never saw them. One woman said my video gave her courage to speak to her husband for the first time in months. My inbox kept filling. People shared the video over and over. I was shocked, but also calm. For the first time, I wasn't hiding. I wasn't pretending to be fine. I had finally let the truth out, and people listened. As for them, his parents' image began to fall apart. Their friends, their neighbors, even people from church started distancing themselves. The polite smiles stopped. The invitations disappeared. Their reputation cracked. Not because I said anything hateful, but because I showed the truth. And my husband? He said nothing. No call, no message, not a single word. I guess silence was all he ever had to give. But this time, I didn't feel small. I didn't feel broken. I felt strong. I had taken back my voice and shared it not just for me, but for others like me. I stayed at the resort a little longer, just by myself. No drama, no tension, no one making me feel small. I spent each evening walking by the water, letting the sound of the waves clear my mind. It felt calm, peaceful. I didn't feel lonely. I felt free. I didn't leave thinking I was going back to anything. I knew deep inside that I had already moved on. Something in me had changed, and I couldn't unsee the truth. I wasn't going to wait for apologies or explanations. I didn't need them. This was never just about a chair at a table or a few rude words. It was about years of being quiet, of trying to fit into a place I was never truly welcome, and finally realizing I didn't have to. I made the choice to speak up, to walk away, to choose myself over staying stuck in someone else's comfort. I don't regret it. I feel lighter now, stronger, and if someone out there hears my story and finds the courage to walk away too, then sharing it was worth it. I didn't just leave a vacation. I stepped into a better life. Do you think I did the right thing by walking away from a family that never truly accepted me? Or should I have stayed and tried one more time? I'd really love to know what you think. Please share your thoughts in the comments below. And if you enjoy honest, emotional stories like this, Don't forget to subscribe and tap the notification bell so you never miss a new one.